The divorce papers sat on the breakfast table between the silver coffee pot and the morning newspapers. I examined them while sipping my tea, nodding the legal terminology with the same detached interest I might give to a mildly interesting piece of gossip. My husband, or rather my soon-to-be former husband, sat across from me watching my reaction with barely concealed anticipation. "Well," Charles Blackwood, Duke of Ravenswood, prompted when I said nothing. "Are you not going to respond?" "To what precisely?" I asked, setting down my teacup with perfect composure. "The divorce itself, I expected it, the terms, they seem standard. What exactly requires my response?" His jaw tightened. "You are being divorced, Lucinda, cast aside. Surely you must feel something." "Feel relief, actually. This marriage has been tedious for quite some time." That clearly was not the reaction he had anticipated. Charles had spent 12 years as my husband and apparently learned nothing about me in that time. He had expected tears, pleading, perhaps dramatics about the scandal and shame of divorce. He had forgotten who he married. "You do realize what this means," he said, his tone shifting to something almost pitying. "You will lose everything, your position, your standing, your protection. Without my name, you will be nothing." I looked at him over the rim of my teacup, really looked at him. The handsome face that had charmed me at 19, the aristocratic bearing that had impressed my father, the title that had seemed so magnificent. 12 years had revealed what lay beneath the attractive surface. Arrogance, infidelity, a complete inability to see anyone beyond himself as fully human. And now, in his final insult, he truly believed I needed him, that I would be nothing without his ducal protection. "Charles," I said with the patience one might use with a particularly slow child, "I was Lady Lucinda Hartwell before I married you, daughter of the Earl of Pemberton. I did not acquire rank by becoming your duchess. I exchanged one title for another of equal standing. That is not the same thing, and you know it. A duchess outranks an earl's daughter. Technically, yes. Socially, the distinction is minimal. We move in the same circles, attend the same events, know the same people. Your name gave me marginally higher precedence at formal dinners. That is hardly a devastating loss. You are being deliberately obtuse. Without my protection, without my name, you will be a divorced woman. Society will shun you. Society will gossip about me, certainly, but shun me, I think not." I poured myself more tea, taking my time. "You see, Charles, you have made a critical miscalculation. You assume people tolerate me because I am your wife. In reality, most of your social connections tolerate you because I am well-liked." His face reddened. "That is absurd. It. When did you last receive an invitation that was not addressed to both of us? When did anyone last call on you alone? I manage our social calendar, maintain our friendships, and smooth over your numerous social blunders. Without me, you will quickly discover how few people actually enjoy your company. You overestimate your own importance. You underestimate everything that is not reflected in a mirror. But please continue with your divorce. I will not oppose it." That stopped him. He had clearly expected resistance, perhaps even hoped for it so he could feel magnanimous in his determination to be rid of me. "You will not fight this." "Why would I? You want to marry your latest mistress. I want to be free of a marriage that has brought me nothing but boredom and disappointment. We are in agreement for once. Let us proceed efficiently." "The settlement is quite generous," he said, pushing the papers toward me. £5,000 a year, the dower house on the estate. You should be grateful." I examined the settlement terms with genuine interest this time. £5,000 was respectable enough to live comfortably if modestly. The dower house was traditional. It was also completely inadequate for what I actually deserved. "No," I said simply. "No, the settlement is insufficient. I want £10,000 annually, the London townhouse on Grosvenor Square and the villa in Bath. I also want my mother's jewelry returned, the pieces she gave me before our marriage that somehow became part of your family collection." Charles stared at me. "That is outrageous. I will never agree to such terms." "Then I will contest the divorce. Publicly. Messily. I will ensure every detail of your infidelities becomes common knowledge. I will make certain everyone knows about your gambling debts, your mistresses, and that unfortunate incident in Paris last summer that you think I do not know about." His face went pale. "You would not dare." "I absolutely would. You want this divorce, Charles. You need it so you can marry Lady Constance before she realizes what a dreadful mistake she is making. But I do not need anything from you except proper compensation for 12 years of my life wasted on this marriage. The courts will never award you such generous terms, perhaps not, but the process will be lengthy and extraordinarily public. Every newspaper in London will cover the proceedings. Every scandal will be examined in detail. Is that really how you wish to begin your new marriage? I watched him calculate. Charles was many things, but he was not stupid. He understood leverage when he saw it. 1,000 is excessive, he tried. 1,000 is what I will accept. Along with the London house and the Bath villa, and my mother's jewelry. London house is worth £30,000. London house was purchased with money from my dowry. I have the documents to prove it. You can give it to me now as part of the settlement, or I can fight for it in court and make your life miserable in the process. Your choice. We stared at each other across the breakfast table. The marriage that had begun with such hope 12 years ago had come down to this. A negotiation between adversaries. Fine, he said finally. 10,000 annually, the London house, the Bath villa, your mother's jewelry, but I want this divorce finalized quickly and quietly. Agreed. I will sign the papers as soon as my solicitor confirms the terms are properly documented. Charles stood, clearly eager to escape. I suppose you will retreat to the country now, hide from society's judgment. Actually, I plan to throw a ball, next month, at the London house. A coming-out ball, one might say, introducing the newly independent Lady Lucinda Hartwell to society. You cannot be serious, perfectly serious. I have been planning it for weeks. I knew you would eventually ask for a divorce. You are nothing if not predictable, Charles. No one will attend. You are a divorced woman. Society will not accept you. I have already received acceptance from 60 guests, including the Duchess of Thornfield, the Countess of Wexford, and your own mother. That genuinely shocked him. My mother accepted your invitation. Your mother never liked you much, Charles. She finds you remarkably similar to your father, whom she loathed. She and I have always gotten along splendidly. She will absolutely attend my ball, if only to spite you. He left without another word, and I returned to my tea and newspapers. The reality of my situation settled over me in the following days like a familiar cloak. I was about to become a divorced woman in 1885 London. Society's rules for divorced women were harsh and unforgiving. Many would expect me to withdraw from public life, to live quietly in the country nursing my shame. But I had no intention of living quietly or nursing anything resembling shame. I had my solicitor, Mr. Pemberton, review every clause of the divorce settlement. He was a shrewd man in his 60s who had served my father faithfully and transferred his loyalty to me upon my marriage. Duke has agreed to remarkably generous terms, Lady Lucinda, he observed, studying the documents through his spectacles. 10,000 annually is nearly double what most divorced women receive, and the properties are substantial assets. Charles is desperate to marry his mistress before she comes to her senses. Desperation makes men generous. Still, you negotiated brilliantly. Your father would have been proud, my father. The Earl of Pemberton had died 5 years ago, never knowing how unhappy my marriage had become. He had thought Charles a fine match, a duke with an ancient title and supposedly sound finances. He had not lived long enough to see his son-in-law's true character emerge. Mr. Pemberton, I need your advice on another matter. I wish to establish myself independently in London society. Not as the divorced Duchess of Ravenswood, but as Lady Lucinda Hartwell, daughter of the late Earl of Pemberton. How do I make that transition clear? He considered this carefully. You must be visible and unapologetic, attend events, host gatherings, remind society that you possess rank independent of your marriage. Your birth gives you standing that divorce cannot erase. That is precisely what I intend to do. Over the next weeks, I threw myself into preparation for my new life. The London townhouse on Grosvenor Square had been neglected during my marriage. Charles preferred his club and his mistress's residence to the formality of our London home. I had it thoroughly cleaned and refurbished, choosing decor that reflected my taste rather than the heavy, masculine style Charles favored. I hired new staff, carefully selected individuals who would serve me rather than carry tailies back to Charles. My housekeeper, Mrs. Fletcher, was a capable woman in her 50s who had previously managed a household for the Marchioness of Surrey. She understood discretion and efficiency. "The house is coming along beautifully, my lady," Mrs. Fletcher observed as we reviewed the renovations. "It will be the finest residence on the square when we finish. That is the intention. I want people to see that I am not hiding in shame. I am building a life. If I may say so, my lady, His Grace made a terrible mistake in divorcing you. You are worth 10 of him." I smiled at her loyalty. "That is kind of you to say, but truthfully, I think we both benefited from the divorce. He gets to marry the woman he actually wants, and I get my freedom. Everyone wins." Invitations for my ball went out 3 weeks before the event. I invited carefully targeting women I had maintained genuine friendships with during my marriage, people who valued me for myself rather than my husband's title. I also invited several influential hostesses whose good opinion could make or break my reentry into society. The responses came swiftly, more than I had anticipated. Some, I suspected, accepted out of curiosity. They wanted to see how a divorced duchess would conduct herself. Others accepted because they genuinely liked me or disapproved of Charles's treatment of me throughout our marriage. A few notable refusals came from women too, concerned with propriety to associate with a divorced woman. I crossed those names off my future invitation lists without regret. If they could not see past scandal to the person beneath, I had no interest in their friendship. My mother-in-law, the Dowager Duchess of Ravenswood, sent her acceptance along with a personal note. "My dear Lucinda, I am delighted to attend your ball. My son is a fool as his father was before him. I have always found you to be excellent company and look forward to our continued friendship despite the divorce. Do not let society's censure trouble you. You are an earl's daughter. That rank is yours by birth and cannot be taken from you by any man, including my idiot son." With affection, Eleanor Blackwood. I read the note 3 times, warmth spreading through my chest. Eleanor had been one of the few bright spots in my marriage. She had endured 40 years with Charles's father before his death freed her, and she understood better than anyone what I had survived. The night of the ball arrived with unseasonably warm October weather. I dressed with exceptional care, choosing a gown of deep sapphire silk that brought out the blue in my eyes. My mother's sapphire necklace, recently returned from Charles's family collection, gleamed at my throat. I wore my hair in a sophisticated style that was elegant without being severe. I looked like exactly what I was, an aristocratic woman of 31 in the prime of her life, confident and unashamed. My guests began arriving at 8 o'clock. I stood in my entrance hall, greeting each arrival personally. The Duchess of Thornfield came early, a statement of support that was not lost on me or anyone else. She was a woman in her 50s, known for her intelligence and her unconventional second marriage to a man 20 years her junior. "Lucinda, you look magnificent," she said, embracing me warmly. "This house is beautiful. You have created something wonderful here. Thank you, Your Grace. I appreciate your support more than you know." Nonsense. I went through my own divorce 30 years ago. I know how vicious society can be to women who dare to leave unhappy marriages. If I can make your path easier, I am delighted to do so. Countess of Wexford arrived next, followed by Lady Beatrice Montgomery, the Viscountess Sterling, and a steady stream of other guests. By 9 o'clock, my ballroom was filled with 73 people, more than I had hoped for. I moved through the crowd, conversing easily, laughing at jokes, discussing art and literature and politics. I was not hiding or apologizing. I was simply being myself, the woman I had always been beneath the role of duchess. Eleanor, the Dowager Duchess, found me near the refreshment table. "You are a triumph, my dear. Look at all these people. They came to support you, not to gawk at scandal." "Some came to gawk," I said honestly. "But I will take their attendance regardless of their motivations. Wise, use every advantage you have." She paused, studying my face. "Are you truly well, Lucinda? Divorce is difficult even when desired." "I am better than I have been in years. I feel like I can finally breathe again." "Good. Charles never deserved you. He is too much his father's son, selfish and blind to anything beyond his own desires. You are well rid of him." The evening proceeded beautifully. I danced with several gentlemen, including Lord Hartwell, a widower in his 60s who had been friends with my father. We spoke of my father's love of history and his extensive library, which I had inherited. "Your father would be so proud of you," Lord Hartwell said as we danced. "The way you have handled this divorce with such dignity. He raised a remarkable daughter." "Thank you, my lord. That means more to me than you know." As the evening drew to a close, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. I had done it. I had publicly reclaimed my identity as Lady Lucinda Hartwell, separate from Charles and his title. I had shown society that I would not be cowed or hidden. The divorce was finalized within 2 months. Charles married Lady Constance 3 weeks later in a ceremony I heard was lovely but sparsely attended. Apparently, my prediction about his social connections had been accurate. Without me to smooth his rough edges and maintain his relationships, many of his so-called friends had drifted away. I felt no satisfaction in his social difficulties. I simply felt nothing at all where Charles was concerned. He had become irrelevant to my life. I spent the following months establishing my new routines. I hosted a weekly salon at my London townhouse, gathering writers, artists, and intellectuals for stimulating conversation. I attended the opera and theater regularly. I became a patron of several charitable organizations focused on helping women in difficult circumstances. I also began traveling, something Charles had never enjoyed. I visited Paris, spent a month in Florence studying Renaissance art, and traveled to Greece to see the ancient ruins I had read about since childhood. For the first time in my adult life, I was answerable to no one but myself. I could read what I wanted, go where I wanted, speak my mind without censorship. The freedom was intoxicating. 6 months after my divorce, I attended a house party at Thornfield Manor, the estate of the Duke and Duchess of Thornfield. They were known for hosting unconventional gatherings that prized interesting conversation over strict social hierarchy. There I met William Hartley, a distant cousin I had not seen since childhood. He was a professor of history at Cambridge, unmarried at 42, more interested in ancient Rome than modern society. We discovered we had remarkably similar interests during a discussion about Marcus Aurelius's Meditations at dinner the first evening. "You have actually read the Meditations in the original Greek?" William asked, his eyes lighting with genuine interest. My father insisted I learn Greek alongside my brothers. He believed education should not be limited by gender. "Your father was a wise man. Most women of my acquaintance have never been exposed to classical philosophy." Women of your acquaintance have been taught that classical philosophy is unfeminine and therefore unsuitable. I have never understood that reasoning. Philosophy is the pursuit of wisdom. Why should that be gendered? We spent hours discussing Roman politics, comparing notes on various historical texts, debating the fall of the Republic. William had no interest in my former title or my current social standing. He simply enjoyed arguing with me about ancient civilizations. It was refreshing beyond measure. Over the course of the week-long house party, William and I spent increasing amounts of time together. We walked the grounds discussing Plutarch. We debated Cicero's political philosophy over breakfast. We compared translations of Tacitus in the library. The other guests began to notice and comment, though William seemed oblivious to the speculation. "You are far too intelligent to have been married to Ravenswood," William observed during a walk through the gardens one afternoon. "How did that happen? I was 19 and foolish. He was handsome and charming and a duke. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Now I am 31 and significantly wiser. I will not make the mistake of marrying for superficial reasons again." "Would you make the mistake of marrying at all?" I considered the question seriously as we walked. "For the right person, perhaps. Someone who values my mind as much as my social connections. Someone who sees me as a partner rather than an ornament, but I am quite content alone if that person never appears." William stopped walking and turned to face me. What if he has already appeared but is too cautious to say so? My heart did something unexpected in my chest. Then he should probably speak plainly. I have little patience for games anymore. "Well, Lady Lucinda, I find you extraordinary. You are intelligent, independent, and argue about Roman history with genuine passion. You challenge every assumption I make and force me to defend my positions with actual evidence. I have not enjoyed anyone's company this much in years." He paused, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "I would very much like to court you properly if you would permit it." "I would permit it," I said, surprised by how much I meant it. "Though I should warn you that I have no intention of being a conventional wife. I will keep my independence, my properties, and my opinions. I would expect nothing less. I'm a Cambridge professor, Lucinda. I have no need of a conventional wife. I want a partner who challenges me intellectually and tolerates my obsession with dead emperors. Then we should suit each other very well indeed." Courtship that followed was unlike anything I had experienced in my first marriage. William courted my mind as much as my person. He sent me books with notes arguing against my interpretations of certain historical events. I responded with detailed rebuttals. We corresponded regularly about everything from Roman engineering to Greek philosophy to modern politics. He also courted me with traditional gestures. Flowers, though he always chose unusual varieties rather than conventional roses. Invitations to lectures and museum exhibitions rather than balls and parties. Long walks where we talked for hours about subjects that interested us both. I found myself falling in love with him gradually, naturally, without the dramatic passion of my youth, but with something deeper and more substantial. Respect, genuine affection, the comfort of being truly known and valued. We married a year later in a quiet ceremony at my family's chapel in Pemberton. I wore blue instead of white and carried books instead of flowers, which scandalized exactly no one who knew me. I remained Lady Lucinda in my new marriage, choosing not to take William's surname. I had been Lady Lucinda Hartwell at birth. I had been Lady Lucinda Blackwood during my first marriage. I would be Lady Lucinda Hartwell again. My rank was mine by birth and required no husband to bestow it. William found this perfectly reasonable. "You are an earl's daughter. That title is yours by right of birth. Why would you surrender it?" Some men would find it threatening. "A wife who insists on maintaining her birth name and rank." I am not most men. And frankly, I am a history professor, not a nobleman. Your rank far outstrips mine. I should probably be taking your name if anything. I laughed, delighted by his perspective. This was what I had missed in my first marriage. A partner who was secure enough in himself to celebrate my identity rather than trying to subsume it into his own. Our marriage was everything my first had not been. Partnership. Respect. Genuine affection based on who we actually were rather than what we represented to society. We divided our time between Cambridge, where William taught, and London, where I maintained my social connections and charitable work. I continued my salons and patronage of the arts. William pursued his academic research. We argued about history and politics and philosophy with the passion of people who genuinely enjoyed debate. We traveled extensively, visiting Rome and Athens to see the ancient sites we had studied for years in books. Standing in the Roman Forum with William, listening to him explain the political significance of various buildings, I felt a happiness so profound it nearly brought tears to my eyes. This was what partnership should be. Two people building a life together while maintaining their individual identities, supporting each other's passions, growing together rather than one person being absorbed into the other's existence. 10 years after my divorce from Charles, I encountered him at the opera. He was there with Constance, who looked tired and unhappy despite her elaborate gown and jewels. I was there with William, laughing at something he had said about the historical inaccuracies in the production. Charles stared at me with something like shock. I was 41 now, older than when we had divorced, but I looked better, happier, more alive. "Lucinda," he said stiffly during the interval when our paths crossed in the corridor. "You look well." "I am well, thank you. Charles, you remember my husband, Professor William Hartley." "Professor," Charles acknowledged with barely concealed disdain. A professor ranked far below a duke socially, and Charles could not resist making his superiority known even in such a brief exchange. "Your Grace," William replied pleasantly, either not noticing or not caring about the disdain. "Lucinda has told me so much about you, though I confess she tells much better stories about Roman emperors." I pressed my lips together to hide a smile. William's complete indifference to social hierarchy never failed to charm me. So you have maintained your position in society, Charles continued, addressing me. Despite the divorce, that must have required considerable effort, really. I am an earl's daughter. Society never questioned my right to be here. Still, it cannot have been easy. A divorced woman rebuilding her reputation. I did not rebuild my reputation, Charles. I already had one, completely independent of you. I simply continued being who I always was. You cannot claim the divorce did not affect you. Affected me tremendously. It made me happier than I had been in 12 years. Constance flinched slightly at my words. Charles's face hardened with something that looked like anger mixed with regret. You always did have a sharp tongue. I always did tell the truth. You simply never listened. I smiled pleasantly, genuinely unbothered by this encounter. If you will excuse us, the second act is about to begin. Enjoy the rest of your evening. William and I returned to our box, leaving Charles and his unhappy wife behind. That was your first husband? William asked as we settled into our seats. That was the Duke of Ravenswood, yes. Seems to believe you should be grateful to him for having been married to you. Believes many foolish things. That was one of our fundamental incompatibilities. You are far too good for him, you always were. I squeezed William's hand, feeling the familiar warmth of genuine affection. I know, it just took me some time to realize it. 20 years after my divorce, I sat in my London townhouse reading a letter from Charles's solicitor. The Duke of Ravenswood had died suddenly at 58. Heart failure, apparently brought on by years of excessive living. His marriage to Constance had produced 2 children but little happiness by all accounts. I felt a pang of sadness for the young man I had married at 19, the charming suitor who had seemed so perfect before I learned what lay beneath the surface. But I felt no regret about our divorce. No wish that things had been different. That marriage had taught me crucial lessons about my own worth and the importance of partnership over position. William found me in my study, noticed the letter in my hand. Bad news. Charles died. Heart failure. I'm sorry. Even bad marriages leave complicated feelings when they end. I am not sorry he is dead exactly. I am sorry he never learned to be happy. He spent his entire life chasing shallow pleasures and never found real contentment. While you found everything he was looking for by walking away from him, I found myself first. Then I found you. Both were worth more than any duchy. William kissed the top of my head gently. I am the fortunate one in this arrangement. I get to spend my life with the most remarkable woman I have ever met. I smiled, leaning into his embrace. Charles had been wrong about so many things, but he had been most wrong about what would happen when I lost his name. I had not lost anything. I had been Lady Lucinda Hartwell since birth. That had never changed, regardless of temporary marriage titles. I had been a lady by blood and by right, not by anyone's permission. And when I reclaimed my birth name after our divorce, I reclaimed myself. Charles had said I would be lost without his name, that I would be nothing. Instead, I had finally found everything, my identity, my independence, my purpose, and eventually genuine love with a partner who valued all of it. I had been a lady since birth, and I would be a lady until death. No man's name could give me that or take it away. That was the truth Charles had never understood. And his ignorance had been my liberation. Did Lucinda's quiet confidence inspire you? Like this video if you believe your worth comes from who you are, not who you marry. Comment below. Would you have fought for better terms? What would you have said to Charles at the opera? Subscribe for more stories of women who knew their value and refused to accept less than they deserved. Share with anyone who needs a reminder that your rank, your worth, and your identity belong to you alone. Hit that notification bell for more tales of reclaiming yourself, refusing to be diminished, and building a life on your own terms.